Cambrai, 1917. Let's see what we got here. This isn't going to take too long. This is, not a big game, not a lot of really exciting things about it, but it's solid, It gives you a nice view that I find a little bit easier and more accessible than right through Cambrai with the area impulse stuff going on. I find those just don't translate as well to me understanding what's going on. Area movement in war games, I'm fine with it on the strategic level. I'm fine with it, I guess, on a very, very skirmishy type level where the units are really tiny. This is not either of those. I don't feel like it really fit well with it. This game, on the other hand, uses more traditional wargaming, toolbox items, your regular hex and counter, standard movement, etc. It's a good game. It's a very good game. I can't find anything to complain about it, to tell you the truth. The reprint offers an opportunity to pick up a very good game, a nice simple play for a more reasonable price. Unfortunately, I went and looked at the site for it. I got this for less at the con than it goes for online. Online, it's a $30 game, and there you're kind of looking at, well, do I want what is not much? It's a very good magazine game. Do I want to pay $30 for it? And you're not going to touch the original for that. That run, the cheapest I think I've seen that for is like 80. The Rand games, they were small runs. It's not like Avalon Hill or SPI here, so people tend to collect them. And so looking at this particular one, well, as far as I can tell, it's a pretty strong reproduction of it. There's some graphics updates. The counters, they're pretty. I found a little bit of difficulty dealing with them in terms of setup. Old eyes, trying to read tiny little letters that match on the map. The map itself, probably a little less clear than what I've seen of shots of the original. Just the color tones, etc., tend to cause me a little bit of issue, only really determining, and it's really not too bad, but with my lighting and the eyes, the ridge lines, which are important, ended up being a little bit hard to see at times. And some of the graphical, hey, this is just artwork stuff, looked a little too close to ridge lines to me. Minor quibbles though. You've got a solid game, one other minor quibble, you have to trim the edge of the map in order, otherwise you have one of these annoying white borders because of the type of printing it does. No big deal there, right? So, what is so cool? Well, there's nothing breathtaking about this. This is a good, simple war game on an intriguing and iconic battle. First time that you see the tanks really having a major effect on the West Front, and trying to remember. Cambrai was close, but then also this is the first time that the Strasstruppen and the infiltration tactics are being used on the West Front. So you've got a nice seesaw type battle. The Brits are able to punch through and get a lot of ground, but then the German counterattack can be very strong. In my case, it wasn't as strong as maybe it should have been. It seems to be fairly balanced. It seems, from whatever, knowledge that I have, to be a believable historical representation. One can always quibble on those things. I'm not very good at quibbling. I don't have that strong a background in it. Okay, but it's still not a huge game. And how much replay do you get out of it? Well, this is where I guess one of the cool factors comes into it, which is you have these variable historical options. You have historical options which you can choose to play with certain ones and not with others. You can decide, hey, I think some of these actually should apply. I think some of them are not unreasonable, or we can balance them off and make things a little different. And you have quite a few of them. Goes up to, M is free setup, which I would say is not really that, but it goes up to L. So if you want to count your letters, you can get how many there are. But on top of that, you've got this random, you got this set of these dark brown counters, which you pull out, and there will automatically be a historical variant on them. I don't think there's any blanks. You could throw some in. And those will give you a set of historical value, changes. I don't know how particularly, whether they balance things. So like here we have one of them is DFGI. There's a lot there. So D is British communications problems and supply problems. These are both ones that appear to be somewhat supported by the statement here. In this first mobile battle, the British suffered many communications failures and Passchendaele causing problems, both of which the game seems to say work, but they also end up the possibility of turning this into just a raid, and the Germans are forewarned, which gives them less surprise. And that would be wow, that's a pretty major thing. That does not sound balanced to me, right? So depending on the chits, you're going to have to kind of figure out your victory conditions on your own with them. But they do allow you to explore situations that aren't historical, but could have happened in some cases. In some cases, maybe not, like the Cavalryman's Fantasy. I think that one was pretty iffy, right? All Cav units have their movement allowance, attack strength, and defense strength doubled. Yeah, okay. That would be a pretty big advantage for the Brits. I don't know if that one sits on its own. But it gives you some different situations. Some of them are hidden at the beginning. So that even if, you've gotten your couple of plays in, whatever you can get out of your average magazine game, you have some more replayability to this than you would to your usual single situation game. And it's not like the decision making and the story that unfolds from the game are always going to be the same in each game anyway. It's just, face it, when this came out, people probably didn't have a whole horde of games. And so this may have gotten a lot more plays and might have been, a really cool, hey, we want to specialize in competitive play of this. But nowadays, with all the many games out there, how are you going to pick your game that you're going to make yourself great at? I don't think Cambrai is the one you choose, even though I think it's perfectly accessible and appropriate for that. In the same way that I feel like SPI's Winter War. I actually feel like this is very similar to that in terms of, not in terms of the play or anything, but in terms of a combination of things of, a good, solid, interesting game at a fairly introductory level. This is probably a little simpler, and with a nice handful of variable events that can shake the game up if it starts getting stale. So I put this in that same bin, and it's kind of in the same bin of, the really good games of that era. And this may be, I've heard some people say this is the best of the Rand kind of small games and everything. Many of their games were kind of lighter like this. obviously not the Great War. But, you know, those games that were really, really good, solid games, and at an easy enough level that you could play it in a couple hours or whatever, well, those tend to go for a fortune, and there are probably plenty of modern games that you could put in that same category now. I think things tend to get a little bit more playtesting, a little bit more effort towards them. I think there were things in this era, certainly not this one, that came out, you know, with a little bit too little development tasks, some, especially from SPI, but obviously Rand's Great War appears to be one of those. This game appears pretty damn solid though, and I would totally recommend it. The only question then comes to, you know, how does it compare to other games? You're getting a magazine game without a magazine for $30. Well, you know, at least there's no risk on it. It stood the test of time. Actually, the only reason I found out about the price of that, I went over to the site that does the reprints, looked it up, because I was kind of curious. I remembered getting it. I think I got it for like 20, which for me is steep on something like this. But this is one I really wanted. And I was like, he's got Eeps too. And that's not a reprint of Rand. It's Kerry Anderson's own design. But the way it looked, I wouldn't be surprised if it's very similar to this. Obviously without the tanks and the infiltration, which take away some of the exciting things. I mean, there's something innovative about it. It's got 4 combat results tables, and you get to choose which one you use within limitations, right? But you always get standard and probe. Mobile you get if you have enough mobile units in there, and surprise you get during your surprise round. I would assume something similar in Eeps, but I haven't gotten to look at it, so I don't know. And it's hard for me to spend $30 on a game without a box. Even the ones that come with a big magazine and everything. It's just tough for me. This was hard enough, and you know, that's just the way I am. I know I'm only going to get a couple of plays in the rest of my life because I got so many damn games now. So if you're in the position where you got too many damn games, this becomes a harder sell. If you're just looking to get into wargaming, that's not a bad choice. It's not at all. Like I said, you know, with the replayability advantage to it, it beats out most of the smaller games that are here, and it's really, really solid. So there you have it. And I'm glad I own it, but you know, it doesn't serve that sort of collector's or, you know, exalted status that the Rand game would. But for me, that's not worth a whole hell of a lot extra, especially when this is, you know, it's not like a butchered version that looks hideous like some companies tend to put out. All right, let's send it up.